Danny, please!
A crown for a king.
Khaleesi?
He was no dragon. Fire cannot kill a dragon.
Welcome to the Binge List. I am your host, Paul Chappell, and an interesting book about Game of Thrones came out yesterday. Fire cannot kill a dragon, and I got a chance to look at it. Some of it's not really that exciting. Most of these stories I've read in the intro of the book are stuff I've heard about Game of Thrones through my many years of reading about that show. That show was so immersive, and this book, there's so many things. If you don't know that much about Game of Thrones and you want to know more without looking at all these different sources on the internet, this is probably going to be a good book for you. Google Books has like 65 pages of the book that you can read for free. I read something like 30 of them, but like I said, I've read so many of these stories. The interesting thing is this book is written by an Entertainment Weekly writer. His name is James Hibberd, and George R.R. Martin did this exclusive interview with James Hibberd to promote the book, and George R.R. Martin reveals some things in this interview that are spoilers for his next book, and they center around Hodor. So you are warned right now that if you don't want to be spoiled about anything about the next book, cut this off and come back to it later. But George R.R. Martin reveals in this interview that he will be changing the Hold the Door scene. If you remember from the show, the White Walkers are busting into the little habitat with the children and Brandon Stark and Mira, and they're trying to escape, and Hodor is used by Bran to hold the door, literally hold the door against the White Walkers until they can escape. And here's what Martin had to say about the execution on the show. I thought they executed it very well, but there are going to be differences in the book. They did it very physical. Hold the door of Hodor's strength. In the book, Hodor has stolen one of the old swords from the crypt. Bran has been warging into Hodor and practicing with his body because Bran has been trained in swordplay. So telling Hodor to hold the door is more like hold this pass and defend it when enemies are coming, and Hodor is fighting and killing them. A little different, but same idea. So I don't know if this is going to be better in the book, because I kind of like what they did on the show with literally having Hodor hold the door. I think that just visually, it makes a lot more sense. Narratively, it makes a lot more sense. I get what George R.R. Martin is saying about it just being more figurative thing than literal. I can appreciate that, but at the same time, I think visually it just works better on the show, because I'm trying to picture that in my head. The way they did in the show, well, let's be honest, it was perfect. And I'm not a big fan of D&D, the executive producers, but there are certain things that they got right on the show. In fact, I did a whole video a long time ago about 3 scenes in the show that did better than the books. And there has been a few, but this is one thing I don't think he should really change. But hey, it's kind of interesting that he had a different perspective on it. One of the other things that was mentioned about the books versus the television show is how they handled the sex scene after Daenerys gets married. And I've heard this story a little bit because, look, I've read about every interview that George R.R. Martin has given. I've seen the videos of every interview he has given. So I've pretty much heard all his stories. So he has explained this before, and here's another situation where I think they got it right on the show, because what it is in the books, Khal Drogo kind of seduces Daenerys. In the show, they made it more of a situation where, let's be honest, it was a rape scene. So I kind of feel strange coming down on the side of the show and what they did on the show, because I actually look, he's a barbarian. Khal Drogo is used to conquering, and what he did on the show was more in line, I think, with his personality and his culture and everything else we find out about him later in the show. And I understand why George R.R. Martin had a problem with it. But again, this is another situation where I don't think what he did in the books would have come across better than what they did on the show. It just wouldn't, because as you know, later in the show, Daenerys kind of seduces Khal Drogo, makes him less of a barbarian. And I think in a lot of ways that led to his death, because he was so much in love with Daenerys that he became in conflict with his underlings, and he gets in a battle with one of his underlings, and you know from the show, so I don't feel this is a spoiler, but he gets injured, and she chooses this lady to care for his wounds, and as a result, he later dies because his wound becomes infected. So I thought ultimately the way they started out that relationship with that sex scene worked a lot better. It just did. And I'm not coming down on the side of rape, but in the context of the show and the time period that they were emulating, and that's the Middle Ages, that's what would have happened. But the book is kind of interesting from what I can see. Like I said, I've read like 30 pages. They interview a bunch of cast members. So they have a lot of quotes from cast members that describe how the show was put together. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, I would definitely recommend reading this. It's really interesting, especially if you don't know all these stories ahead of time. So that's all I got for today. I'd like to thank my subscribers and encourage you, if you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell so you know when my next video drops. Give me a like, dislike, comment down below. I will answer your questions, and I will see you when I see you. Thanks for watching.